Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm setting up my bullet journal for June 2020. How did we get here? What is 2020? Can someone explain? I have literally not left my house in almost 2 months, and I don't even know what's happening anymore. But we're here, we're thriving. I am still working full-time and using my bullet journal every single day. So here I am setting up my bullet journal for June. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I will talk about them a little bit more at the end of the video, but for now, let's jump right into the cover page. So for this theme, I wanted to do something very spring-like, and that meant flowers. I know, flowers for spring. Groundbreaking. For real though, I don't tend to do floral themes too frequently on my channel. I'm a lot more likely to do green foliage themes than to do floral themes, so this is actually a little different for me, as much as it may not be that unique in the grand scheme of the bullet journal community. But regardless, it's what I wanted to do, so, you know, I'm just living my best life here. So for this cover page, I thought it would be really cool to have it really bold and graphic to cover a full 2-page spread. So for the actual typography for the font I'm going for in this setup, I decided to do a more traditional looking serif font. I did a lot of research and found quite a few references and then tried to come up with my own variation. And to tie in the gold theme from my previous setups in 2020, every single setup I've done in 2020 has involved a gold element. I decided it would be really cool if the letters themselves were gold and all of the art I'm creating, all of these floral botanical illustrations, were black and white, really detailed ink work. So that's sort of the vibe I'm going for. I think, in my humble opinion, that it turned out really great. I'm really happy with this, so hopefully you like it too. So a couple tips for this. I definitely recommend sketching this out before you start. That's really going to help you out. I also recommend having quite a few references on hand, both for the letter forms and for the florals you're drawing. Unless you draw realistic looking florals all the time and don't need a reference, then go for it. But for me personally, because I don't really go for this style of more realistic floral illustrations very often, I definitely needed to have a bunch of reference photos of different flowers. I would also definitely recommend, if you're going for this kind of look, that you start with the line art, that you create all the botanical illustrations first, even the botanical illustrations that are going to sit on top of the letter forms, because you're going to want to have that negative white space. And if you start with the gold letter form, you're going to have to fill in that white space with some sort of white pen before adding the details. And it's just a lot easier to use the page as the white space in your drawings, and then just be careful about filling in your letter form around those details. I used a white gel pen to fill in this main flower on the J. I decided some of the details I added were a bit too much, so I just covered those up. Another thing that really helped me on this setup was creating little thumbnail sketches of all of the different letter forms first, just to get a feel for how I wanted the botanical elements to interact with the letter form, whether I wanted them behind the letter or in front, what section of the letter I wanted them to be placed on. And I typically like to use my iPad and Procreate for that because it's easy to add a new layer and try something different, but you can easily use a page at the back of your bullet journal. What, Chewy? Chewy would prefer that I use a paper and pencil because then he can sit on the page, but alas, I typically use my iPad. Once I draw in my botanical illustrations, it's time to fill in the letter form. So I'm starting with a gold gel pen. I will never stop touting this gold gel pen as the best gold gel pen I have ever used. It is the Pentel Sunburst Metallic Medium Gel Pen in gold, and it is fantastic. I highly recommend it. It's linked in my description box along with all of the supplies I'm using in this video, as per always, and it's fantastic. You could easily just use the gel pen and get a really beautiful effect. But as y'all know, I'm a little extra when it comes to my gold details, so I'm gonna go back on top of it once it's fully dry with my gold watercolor from Fine Tech. As for applying the watercolor, I'm using a relatively small brush to fill in the larger areas, and then I'm going in with my really fine detail brush just to get the little edges. I did my best to avoid painting over the lines I drew, but once the watercolor is fully dry, you can go over top of it again with a pen. So I went back in and cleaned up the edges here and there where I went a little bit over with the watercolor just to make it look nice and crisp. So that is our cover page finished, and now we're going to move on to the next spread, which is the quote page for the month. So for this one, I'm creating a gold diamond shape to enclose the quote. And then I'm going to surround this whole shape with these flower botanical drawings. So I'm bringing back quite a few of the designs from the cover page just to have that sort of consistency throughout the spread, but I am also creating a few new styles of leaves and flowers just to add a little bit more variety. And I personally like the look of repeating the same types of flowers in different areas around the border. I think it can start to look a little busy if you make each element completely different. So I like to have flowers that, even if they're slightly different, have a similar shape to them, or different details on the leaves, but they do have a similar elongated style, or making basically identical repeats of flowers in certain sections. That helps to make it look more like a pattern and less like a completely random group of botanical elements. For the quote on the inside, I'm using my stamp pad, which I haven't used for a long time, and the stamp pad is actually running out of ink. At first, I was a bit disappointed by this, but I ended up actually really liking the slightly faded letters and the inconsistency. So my first thought was to go back over top with a pen and fill it in, but I actually much preferred this sort of faded look, so I stuck with that instead. And I used my white gel pen again to just cover up the little spots where the edges of my letter stamps touched the page. Now that the gel pen is dry, I'm going in with my gold watercolor to fill in this diamond shape. And that's it for our quote page. Moving on to my monthly calendar. I recently created a wall calendar for my office. If you didn't see that video, I will link it for you so you can check it out. And because I created that calendar, I'm needing a lot less space in my bullet journal calendar. I still need one. I still like to have it in my bullet journal wherever I go for reference. I like to be able to write in any events and birthdays and things that are coming up. But just like many of us right now, I have less events. less things to write on my calendar these days. And the things I do still write on my calendar, which is mostly related to my job, so YouTube and Instagram, Patreon, those things are a lot more malleable. They change quite frequently, and it's nice to have them on my dry erase calendar where I can shift things around a lot more easily. So I really brought the scale of my calendar down this month. I think this will be more than enough for me, but of course we're all different in how we use our bullet journals. I thought it would be kind of nice to create separate boxes for each day of the month and add a bit of a shadow effect so they look almost three-dimensional, like they're slightly popping out of the page. And I used my stamps again to add the days of the week along the top. And then for the artistic element on the spread, I'm adding a J at the bottom, again with a floral botanical element. For this one, I decided to have the flower and the leaves completely behind the letter, just for something a little different. And I tried to draw a slightly different style of flower here. I'm really bad with identifying flowers, that's why I'm not using the names for what these flowers are based on in this video. If you know what any of these flowers are called, feel free to educate me in the comments if you so wish. It's just not something I really pay attention to. Like, I don't have a favorite flower, so flowers are pretty, but that's about as far as I go. So now moving on to the final spread of this video, which is the first weekly for June. As always, I'm doing the rolling weekly. This is the only weekly I've used for literal years. If you've never heard of it, I'll link my video where I explain it in detail if you're interested in learning more. And I've been using the 2-page setup for the past few months just because I haven't needed quite so much space on my weeklies. So at the top on the left side, I'm adding a W for week and then 23 because it will be the 23rd week of the year. And again, adding these plant and flower elements in and around these letters and numbers. And then on the right page, I'm adding a T for tasks and again, adding those botanical elements. And I'm setting these up in the exact same way as the cover page letters. So I'm starting with the ink drawing, adding the gold gel pen, and then once the gold gel pen's dry, I'm going over that with a watercolor. And then once the watercolor's dry, I'm touching up the edges of the ink. For the days of the week and the dates, I'm using my stamps again, as well as for the days of the week on my task list. I'm also adding little dividers for each day of the week just to keep them separated. I used to always use these little brackets on my weeklies, and I feel like I haven't for a while, so it felt a bit nostalgic to do them again. They're so basic, but yeah, it just makes me think of bullet journals past. It was fun for me, anyway. So I find doing these letters really fun because you can really do anything. You can use so many different types of flowers and leaves. You can put them on top, you can put them behind, you can have them wrapping around parts of the letter forms. It's just really fun to get creative and play with it. So I would love to see some of you recreate some of these letters, whether you do them in your bullet journal or just try to create a couple for practice, and what you come up with, because I had so many different ideas, but only so many letters to actually create for my setup. So I'm looking forward to setting up the other weeklies this month and getting to try out a few different designs. And here we're coming to the end of this setup. Now, before I show you the full flip through of the finished spreads, I want to talk to you about today's video's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people just like you. It's the perfect place to develop new skills, explore your passions, and get lost in creativity. Skillshare offers creative classes designed for your real life and all of the circumstances that come with it, and is especially perfect right now. Skillshare really emphasizes membership with meaning. They believe that a strong community is essential in times of hardship. Getting involved on Skillshare can put you in contact with fellow creatives who can provide encouragement, communication, inspiration, and support. I recently took 2 classes which really helped with this video in particular. One was the Illustrated Lettering Drawing Intricate Floral Forms by Gemma O'Brien, and the other was Lettering for Self-Expression Create Stunning Handcrafted Type by Ade Hogue. Specifically, the illustrated lettering course helped to inspire the lettering I did in this video. As you can see, I sort of created the inverse effect with my lettering that Gemma did in this course, but I highly recommend this one. She goes into so much detail into her research, creating letter forms, trying out different compositions, how you can combine physical and digital art creation to come to a finished product. So I highly recommend you check out this course or the Lettering for Self-Expression course, which was also really helpful. Creativity is my absolute favorite form of self-care, and I highly recommend checking out Skillshare to spark your inner creativity and find a way to fend off boredom and quiet your mind. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And now, without further ado, let's check out the full flip through of my June setup. I love how this is both really minimalist and has a lot of open negative space, but is at the same time incredibly intricate. It just really hits me in the feels, you know, especially the shiny gold. I feel like I'm basically a bird obsessed with shiny things at this point, but you know what? In our current situation, we have to cling to those things that bring us joy, as simple as they may be. And you know what? I think Marie Kondo would approve this message. So, anyway, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what theme you think I should do for July. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already for some reason. What are you doing? Join the fam already. And before I go, I want to take a second to thank my patrons for their support. My patrons are the absolute best people on the internet, in my opinion. I'm not biased at all. And we've been having a lot of fun lately on Patreon. On our exclusive Discord server, we've been watching movies together, hanging out, giving each other recipe ideas, talking about astrology, talking about books. Speaking of books, there is a brand new tier, which is a book club that is starting up in June that I am so excited for, and we're currently voting for our first selection. I want to take a moment to thank our newest patrons, Twiggy, Kelly, Jessica, and Kayla. Welcome to the squad. We're so excited to have you. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. And with that, this video is over. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day, and I will see you very soon in my next one. Bye, friends. Oh, hey, you're still here. Are you looking for something else to watch? Because I have a lot of videos on my channel. You could check out this video, or maybe you're interested in seeing the first video on my second channel. Here.